So it seems that Tim Hardaway Jr. is in some trade rumors. Kind of makes sense because the Knicks are apparently all in on cap space and all that, and Hardaway has not been the best with the Knicks, but at the same time, you could argue, and I am going to present this argument, that Hardaway has not been used totally correctly for the Knicks. Not necessarily in his role, but more so he's forced into a play style that doesn't totally suit him. And what I mean by that is, while he is a guy who likes to take shots, he's been pretty much forced to be the Knicks' number one option this year and for a lot of last year because Porzingis has been injured, right? And if Tim Hardaway Jr. is leading your offense, and this will all connect to the trade rumors in a second, but if he's leading your offense, it's almost guaranteed you're not going to be a good offense, right? Because while Hardaway doesn't turn the ball over that much, which is good, he's not a playmaker. If the defense collapses on him, or if the defense leaves certain guys open and rotates at the right time and all that, I don't think Hardaway's capable of making you pay for that stuff. Occasionally, maybe, he can pull off a good-looking pass here and there, but it's just not his game, right? He's about shooting the ball, and that's pretty much it. He's shooting the ball, probably, hopefully not taking as many long twos, because that's been kind of the thing that's plaguing his percentages this year. His finishing at the basket could perhaps be a little better, but the guy can beat people off the dribble. He can get into the defense. He can make shots. I don't think he lives at the free throw line, but he is shooting 5 free throws a game. You could categorize that as borderline living at the free throw line. So it's like, okay, he can shoot 5 free throws a game. He attempts 7.5 threes a game to shoot 35% from 3. This is a valuable player, and I think the Knicks are in a situation right now where they could trade him and get cap space so they can go all in on future assets, whether they can get a young player for him or they just want to have more money to play with in this upcoming offseason. Whatever it may be. Or they could be like, you know what, this guy's good, and if we just get Porzingis back and we're able to sign somebody in free agency and Hardaway can be pushed down to our third option, then perhaps he could actually be a pretty efficient player, because with the Hawks back in 2017, Hardaway had his most efficient season where, sure, that wasn't the Hawks team that won 60 games or anything, but they still had Millsap, and Budenholzer did about as much as he could with that team, and there was their signature offensive flow and a lot of passing and handoff plays and all that. And again, in that setting where Hardaway didn't have to take over, I mean, the guy shot 46% from the field. His true shooting was, I believe, like 56%, which is a lot higher than it's been for the Knicks. It was actually 57% for the Hawks. So I do think there's an efficient scorer in there. But again, he can't be your leading usage guy, your leading shot taker, your leading ball handler, and all that stuff. So, I don't know. What do the Knicks think there's a better chance of happening, if that was proper English? They get another free agent who can help out Hardaway? Or do they think they would have a better chance of just moving on from Hardaway and, from there you just see what you can get? I don't really know. I mean, they do have the cap space, and there are guys available this offseason. I mean, of course, there's the Kyries and the Durants that everybody wants to talk about. But even somebody like Tobias Harris, I think, could be huge. I mean, if the Knicks were able to get him, and then it's Porzingis leading the team in shots, Tobias Harris second, and then Tim Hardaway third, I think that starts to look a lot better. But again, it's not a guarantee that is going to happen, but you can potentially guarantee that you can get something for Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, the other thing to talk about here is what would other teams see in the guy. So the big thing for me here is, again, Hardaway's making threes. And if he's making threes at this clip, which is pretty damn impressive, I mean, 7.5 a game at 35%, that's quietly one of the better three-point performances I think you can have in the NBA. So if he's on a team that has more creating abilities and he's able to play in the corner sometimes or come off of screens and that sort of thing and just get more open threes, this guy could actually be like quietly one of the 4 to 7 or 8 best shooters in the entire league. So imagine if he was on a team like the Mavericks and the trade was something like Wesley Matthews' contract. for Tim Hardaway Jr., right? This is something Bill Simmons has mentioned many times this year. I mean, if Luka's creating for Tim Hardaway, again, that might just make Hardaway very valuable for the Mavericks, and it may not be possible for the Knicks to put him in that position. Now, again, maybe it is with free agency and whoever the hell else knows what's going to happen, but yeah, this is definitely something the Knicks need to care about. There are, of course, other teams. Some of them are the teams that I'm always talking about on this deadline, whether they're, the Pacers or the Pelicans or a team like the Pistons who's just desperate to improve, or a team like the Blazers who just wants one more guy. I feel like you could slot Tim Hardaway into most of those situations. Maybe not Detroit, because, well, Blake could create for him. I don't know if Reggie Jackson could, but, a team like Portland, right? Tim Hardaway comes in there. You hope he's at least willing to fit into Portland's defensive style, which is basically just force teams to take mid-range jump shots. And maybe he could be that third piece who can really do stuff on offense, play off of Dame and CJ, create when you need him to. Now, you could argue it might be a little awkward with him and Evan Turner, or potentially Evan Turner could create for Hardaway, which would allow him to be even more of an off-ball player. Who really knows? But there are some things here that I think make sense for other teams to think about. But at the same time, is it possible that Tim Hardaway really isn't this efficient player? And while he may have had it for the Hawks when he was 24 years old, now he's 26, maybe has a little bit more of an ego, definitely has a bigger paycheck, and perhaps he now believes that he should be the high-usage guy. And if that's the case, well, then unfortunately, it's probably not going to work anywhere. But we don't know. I mean, I'm not inside Tim Hardaway Jr.'s head, so I don't know what he perceives himself as, but it can be difficult for a guy who's attempting about 15 and a half shots the last 2 seasons to then dip down to, 10 shots a game or so. It'll be interesting to see, but I would have to guess these are the conversations that opposing front offices are having, because this is a talented guy. And if you can make him an efficient scorer who can make threes and be a bit of a ball handler for you, then that's quite a player, even if he is perhaps a little overpaid at $18 million a year. So we'll have to see what happens. If I was the Knicks, I would not rule anything out. I would definitely look around and see what I can get for him. And if I thought that the return was actually something good, then I would pull the trigger. But if I had to keep him because the offers out there really weren't that great, in the sense of, yeah, maybe I can get off of his salary, but I'm not actually helping my basketball team at all, whether it's the future or whatever, then I wouldn't hate the idea of keeping him. So, yeah, that's where I'm at on Tim Hardaway Jr. and these Knicks rumors. I mean, look, they're going to be at $60 million next year in salary right now, which does give you the space for a max player. And I guess the idea being, well, if we can get off Hardaway and Courtney Lee and potentially Lance Thomas as well, then we could get ourselves even more money for, 2 max dudes. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't go that reckless, but it's the Knicks, and maybe they're all in on doing something crazy. Anyway, that's my take on this whole thing.